Hey everyone, I am back. It's Dr. Hammond here with your mental health moment. I hope that you've had a wonderful, wonderful week. For those of you who are new to Mental Health Moment, welcome. It's Dr. Hammond here. And for those of you who tune in every Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, welcome back. And thanks so much for tuning in here. If for those of you who are not new, you know that every first Tuesday of the month is specifically devoted to children and teen mental health. And for those of you who are new for the very first time, welcome. Every first Tuesday, as I mentioned, is dedicated toward youth mental health because there's really a lot happening for our youth, and I want to make sure that you all are aware of youth mental health, but also know some of the strategies and know some of the things that we can do as a community to really help our youth. Because unfortunately, a lot of youth are struggling with depression and with anxiety and with trying to figure out life, especially over the last couple of years because of COVID and all that it's done to really turn all of us globally, our lives upside down. So thank you for those who are starting to join here today. It's Dr. Hammond here with your mental health moment. Speaking of youth, this is pre-recorded today because at this time, Tuesday, 8 p.m. slot, Eastern Standard Time, I will be on a plane headed to a service trip with some amazing youth, a part of the Ryan Neese Foundation. So I am pre-recording this for today, but you can always, as you know, reach out, Instagram, Dr. Hammond, or Facebook, Dr. Nikisha Hammond, on my website or any other social media platform if you have any questions. Also, for those of you who are watching the replay on YouTube, welcome, or maybe if you're listening to the podcast as well, welcome, welcome. So one of the things I want you to remember about youth mental health is as a global community, it actually affects mental health conditions, actually affects 1 in 7 individuals between the ages of 10 to 19. So that's about 13-14% of that child and adolescent population, which is huge, you all. And that's just the estimate. I can promise you it's likely a lot higher because, again, unfortunately, we have the stigma of mental health. A lot of the statistics we hear that what people are saying is going on with them versus people that are afraid to come forward, or families that are afraid to discuss mental health conditions that are going on with their families, obviously skew the numbers. But the reason why I'm telling you that today is because this is a real issue. Children's mental health, teen mental health is a real issue. But there's a couple of things that really can be helpful. So I want to share a couple of those with you today. And again, thank you for those who are starting to join here. It's Dr. Hammond here with your mental health moment. But the first tip today, again, first Tuesday of the month, is dedicated to children and teen mental health. So the first tip I want to share with you today is to understand how important it is for us to be reaching our youth early. Early help is critical. The reason I say that is because, unfortunately, there are many families, there are many children, there are many teenagers who do not get help until years and years and years later. I have seen it in my own practice. I have read many research articles about this, and I can share with you, unfortunately, that it takes years sometimes. So this child, a particular child may be struggling from the age of 6 or 7 or 8, but they don't get help until they're in high school, or they don't get help until the later years of middle school. Again, for a lot of different reasons. But it's really critical that we understand how important it is to get help earlier, because when you do get help earlier for this child, they have better outcomes, they have a better prognosis. And depending on who you are listening to this or watching this right now, you may say, well, Dr. Hammond, I don't even have any biological children, but I know someone that does. Or I'm a grandparent right now, or an aunt, or an uncle, or I know someone who has children that can really benefit from this. So I urge you, even if you don't have children in your own house, to share this information and to let people know how critically important it is to get help early. Another thing, so number one, kids and teens deserve and need to get help early. The second thing is we have to take what they're saying seriously. Yes, are there children out there who do things to seek attention? Yes, they do. Are there children out there who are struggling? Maybe they're being defiant, uh, and it's not a mental health condition. Absolutely. However, a lot of kids who are struggling with the depression, with the anxiety, with the learning issues, with the ADHD, a lot of those kids are not being taken seriously because we don't understand as a community what how mental health affects children, and as a result they are not getting the help that they need. So we're thinking, because I've seen it before, I've seen it in the school system, I've seen it in many different systems, that we make assumptions quickly about kids. We think, well, they're just not doing that because of XYZ. Well, they're not, they're just lazy, or they don't feel like it, or they're just misbehaving, and all of these things, which could be true, but there's a huge, large number of children that also are struggling with true mental health conditions, or struggling with adapting and coping with everything that's been going on around them. So again, I want us to think about, we need to take children seriously. Unfortunately, man, I started in the field so long ago, but unfortunately, way back when, there wasn't really as much of a focus as there should have been on children's mental health. Uh, well, some people, even still now, there's this idea that, what do kids have to be stressed out about? Like, mental health for children is not real. I can tell you that is absolutely not true. And I also share this with you because, again, we have to take children seriously. We have to know that, yes, young children have depression. Yes, young children and older children and teenagers have anxiety or ADHD or whatever it is that they're going through. They do not physically have the brain capacity to comprehend the things that happen in their lives like we do as adults. No matter how grown up they seem, I know there's a lot of 12-year-olds out there, or 13, 14-year-olds that you're like, man, they have it all together. Uh, they do not have, physically do not have the brain development to function and think about life the way we do and understand it as an adult. But but even though that's the case, they still have things, unfortunately, that they go through that really they shouldn't be going through at a young age. Things that some adults haven't even been through. And that's trauma, and that comes on a lot of different levels, right? So we have to recognize that our kids have been going through a lot. Everything, especially, I always bring it back to the last couple of years, because as a global community, what COVID did for some of our youth was really just massively change the way that they think of the world, their view of the world. When you're a child, you're supposed to be learning about trust. You're supposed to be learning about safety. You're supposed to be learning about having a sense of belonging. All that got taken away from them when the world shut down. So again, there's many kids that are, most kids are very resilient, but there's other kids that are still struggling from this. So please, let's not forget this. The other thing that I want to share with you today is, because I know a lot of people have asked me, like, how do we help kids? Like, how do we really help them? Uh, there's a lot of ways to help kids. One of the things I want to share with you today, though, is about prevention strategies. Prevention. We always want to go to the intervention. I see it all the time. We always wait, and I say we, the systems globally. We wait until children are failing. We wait until they're suspended. We wait until the referrals. We wait until they end up hospitalized. I mean, for some reason or another, like, let's not wait until they're at that point. Let's think about prevention. What does that look like? Here's an example. Think about in your own community of, there depending on where you live, it may be different geographically, but usually there are programs that can be helpful. Nowadays, we have so much online too, virtually, but that can be helpful to kids with to help them build their self-esteem, to help them build their self-confidence, to help them build their leadership, to help them understand mental health, physically their bodies, emotionally what they're going through, right? There's so many of those types of programs, again, virtually or in your community that you can find. Now, does this child that I'm talking to you about have to already be diagnosed with a mental health disorder to do this program? No, they don't, because unfortunately we have uh, mistakenly thought in our community that we have to wait until kids are not okay to get them help. But that's the complete opposite. We should be thinking about before they get to the point where they're breaking down. How can we build them up? This is where we need to be at. So again, finding those programs. If you need help, send me a DM. You know, I always tell you all, shoot me a DM on Instagrams where I spend most of my time, Dr. Hammond, or you can go to my website, drnikishahammond.com. You can go to Facebook, wherever it is you need to reach me. I will do my best to try to help you, as I always do, find a counselor, mental health professional, resource, or whatever it is to help. And the same thing goes with youth, because again, there's a lot of programs online and in the communities. So it's really important to shift our mindset and to think more about prevention before we get to the breakdown, before we get to a child being arrested, before we get to a child having to repeat a grade because they failed, because they couldn't concentrate, because they were depressed, because they were anxious. The list goes on and on. Before all of that, let's make sure that our children are emotionally healthy. So I strongly recommend that you think in that prevention mode. It's never too early to start. There are preschool programs right now that are teaching children how to really think about being mentally strong and emotionally strong and what that looks like for them. So at the preschool level, they have that. And of course, again, age appropriate programs would be recommended. Sometimes there's programs in groups. Sometimes there's programs, more individual programs, but there's a lot of different types of programs, prevention programs. The second thing is to really also utilize, we are in a digital era. Yay, yay, well, yay. I celebrate it. But I do know sometimes it's rough, it's hard, and it can be stressful, especially for our youth, frankly, with all the cyberbullying that's been going on, which, of course, if you didn't know, went up during the pandemic because a lot of kids were at home and didn't have anything to do. So, unfortunately, the cyberbullying went up. But the positive part about this digital era is that a lot of children and teens are on YouTube. So if they are open to it and you can provide them the resources, the reputable resources to better their emotional health on YouTube, or maybe they're a podcaster if they're a teen and they're open to hearing these types of positive inspirational messages. Maybe they want to do something more in group. I know some teens are like, nope, I have no desire, Dr. Hammond, to do anything in a group setting. I want to be by myself. It's all good. We have to meet kids where they're at. So again, finding them or apps, there's plenty of apps, finding what works for this particular child or teen. Everyone is different. I always say, please do what works for you, and please do what works for this child. Not every child wants to be on apps or on YouTube or whatnot, learning about their mental health, but there's different ways to help them build up their character, build up their resilience, and build up who they are as a person. For some kids, it's sports. For some kids, it's art. For some kids, it's music. There's a lot of different ways for us to think about that. And then the other part is, which also I get a lot of questions about, is what if this child is just uninterested? What if they're uninterested in being in a program to help them emotionally? What if they're uninterested in listening to a podcast or reading a self-help book, or whatever other type of virtual way that we could intervene or uh, prevent mental health conditions. What if they're uninterested in all that? Here's what I'm going to say: there are plenty of teenagers and young kids that are uninterested. However, we as a community have an opportunity to really think about connecting with our youth. What does that mean? Well, checking in with them. It goes a long way when children feel like someone cares about them. It really, really does. Uh, does it save every single child? No. But does it help a lot of children? Yes. So we can't give up hope wherever they're at. Again, I mean, there's a spectrum when it comes to mental health. There's a spectrum when it comes to children and teens being receptive to what you place in front of them to help them. You all know there's some really high achieving kids, and there's some kids that are really having a difficult time for a lot of different reasons, with learning how to be better versions of themselves. Whether it's because of trauma, whether it's because of differences in abilities, there's a lot of different reasons. But what I'm saying is there's a lot of resources, there's a lot of avenues to go down to help this particular child that may be in your life. So that's what I would really encourage you to think about as we continue for the rest of this year here, because again, it's really been a lot for our youth. And many of you already know last year there was a national emergency on children's mental health declared by the American Academy of Pediatrics and other professional organizations because of the hospitalizations for mental health purposes, because kids were thinking about or trying to hurt or kill themselves. I mean, the anxiety, the depression, like all of these things were really alarming and increasing. It didn't start with the pandemic. We had issues before the pandemic for children's mental health, but it worsened with the pandemic. It definitely didn't help. So again, there's just a huge need, a massive need right now for children's mental health. So I strongly encourage you to be thinking about, okay, if you have a child in your life, as I mentioned, maybe you're an educator, you're a counselor, somebody with a child, to be thinking about what avenues do they need and how can you support them? Because sometimes parents need support. Sometimes there could be a parent that needs something so small, a small favor, but it makes a world of difference for that family and for those kids and for those grandparents, parents, aunts, uncle, godparents, whomever it is. So really, think about that as well when we think about helping our children and helping our teens get through all these really difficult times here. So again, for those of you who are just tuning in, it's Dr. Hammond here with your mental health moment. Again, first Tuesday of every month, we talk specifically about children's mental health. Today, we're talking about strategies. There's a lot of different avenues. I'm very understanding. Everyone has different resources, whether financial resources, whether community resources, geographically where you're located. I understand this is a global community, and communities are all different in what they offer and what they can bring. But what we all have in common all over the globe is we have each other. And I believe, on Mental Health Moment, we have caring people who want to serve, who want to help others. So I'm going to put that in the universe here and believe that is who is listening to this right now. So I ask you, as I close here, I really ask you to think about, how can I help whomever it is in your life, whether it's your own child or someone else's child or children that you work with. What can I do? Even sharing information sometimes, you all. For those of you who do follow me on social media, almost every day I try to share something, even if it's an article, something reputable related to mental health. I mean, literally, it sometimes that is what people need as well, information. Sometimes they need a lending hand. Sometimes they do need something financial. Sometimes they need you to care. There's just there's so much need right now in the world. Youth need a lot. And but I don't want you to think that you being a smaller piece of the puzzle is not important, because it really, really just is. And I can promise you, as a psychologist who has heard thousands and thousands of stories, the smallest gesture sometimes it is saving people's lives. It just is. so so please understand that. Please understand how much youth do need you. Please don't think that anything you are doing is insignificant, because it's not true. Uh, and again, if you all need me, you all know where to reach me. drnikishahammond.com. You can reach out, as I mentioned before, on direct message on Instagram or Facebook, Twitter. What else? I feel like LinkedIn. Yeah, but be sure to connect, or like I said, and or send a DM, and I'll be sure to answer your questions. So thanks so much again today. For those of you who are tuning in late to this broadcast, yes, this is pre-recorded today. Normally it is live every Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. However, at this time that you're watching this, I am actually going to be on a flight. So until the airlines let me stream my live, which they do not right now, until they do, then I'll have to do pre-recorded, obviously. But I'll be on a flight to a service project with some youth from the Ryan Neese Foundation. So speaking of youth, I'm excited to really go on this trip, and a service trip with these youth, and help them build leadership skills and build up who they are and become better versions of themselves. So, so if you need to reach me, you know where to reach me. And I will be back next Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on Black Women Empowered Incorporated Facebook page and YouTube Live and LinkedIn Live. Have an amazing week, and I'll see you all next time. Bye, y'all.